Somewhere along the way, leadership forgot how to be human. Now, your skill sets and your training are not your primary contribution to an organization. The primary value you bring as a leader is your humanity. I think you'll agree, I think we can all agree by just looking around that leaders today have failed to bring their humanity to this moment in history. I think as a people, as a species, we have got to deconstruct our concepts of leadership that have gotten us to this place. For many of us, maybe most of us, leadership and leading and all the buzzwords around it have become hollowed out or carry a lot of baggage or are just painful. So to look at this with a fresh set of eyes, 3 leadership quotes that do not mention leadership from a Franciscan friar, a trauma-informed physician, and a cultural economist. We've all had the experience of someone we only hear from when they need something from us, a ride to the airport. But other than that, we just don't hear from them very much. And this is something that I would call a transactional headspace, a transactional heart space. We see this a lot in our workplaces. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because you're only there generally to get a paycheck in the first place. But sometimes a transactional headspace is wrapped up in our ideas of what a good leader is. I want to look at 2 things. I want to look at a post and an article, and then we're going to have some questions, and then we're going to have 3 quotes. So let's start with this. Look at this post. This is from a leader on LinkedIn. The recognition effect, 10 simple ways to inspire loyalty, purpose, and peak performance. So that doesn't sound bad, right? Pretty good. The greatest driver of performance isn't pressure, but recognition. Once you start recognizing people well, you won't just build a stronger team, you'll unlock their purpose. So this post is saying that if you recognize your people, you perform that action, what you will get out of it is loyalty and efficiency. So it's suggesting that leadership, a good way to lead people is to make sure that you recognize them as a tool to get something back. Okay, hold that in your mind. I want to look at this article. This is from Harvard Business Review. It's called The Leadership Mindset. This is from 2024. Let me find the page. How was it? I should have marked this. There's a cute little picture of a puppy. That's nice. Here's what it says. And this is written by an associate professor at Stanford. When I started studying empathy nearly 20 years ago, its status in the workplace was controversial. Many people believe that empathetic leadership, which draws on the ability to understand, care about, and vicariously experience the emotions of others, was too soft for the hard-charging competitive world of business. But by now, dozens of studies over the last 2 decades have demonstrated the opposite. Empathy is not a weakness, but something of a workplace superpower. Okay, here's what I want to talk about. There's a lot of stuff in this article that I am irritated by. It goes on to say that empathetic leadership is emotionally exhausting, despite what Brene Brown and Simon Sinek and Adam Grant and everyone else says, that it's actually filling as a human to experience caring for someone else. This is proposing that leaders use empathy as a tool, despite how hard it is, to get their team to do stuff. Retention is mainly what this is about, retention. How to sustain your empathy in difficult times. Here are 2 unrelated stories saying the same thing. They are saying that leaders have weapons at their disposal to extract behaviors from their teams. Okay? Now, the problem with this is at its base level, it's transactional, right? So leaders have figured out that if they use some basic human skills, they can extract efficiencies from their teams. They can inspire loyalty and gain retention, and eventually it'll affect the bottom line. So this is producing a lot of things we don't want in our society, burnout, all this kind of stuff. But the main thing we need to recognize is that this is producing generations of leaders who are not equipped to lead us in our present circumstances. Leaders are weaponizing humanity to get results from humans. If leadership development so far from the leadership industry had worked, we would be seeing very different results in our leaders of today, right? So if the answer is not inside the leadership canon, where are we going to get the answer? And I think we will find it in other sources that aren't typically what you would see in a business or management book. So we're going to look at 3 quotes. All 3 of them are outside of the leadership canon. It's 3 quotes about leadership that do not mention leadership from a Franciscan friar, a trauma-informed physician, and a cultural economist. These quotes ruined my concepts of leadership in the best way, and I think they're going to crack something open in you. So let's dive in. But before we jump into this, I just want to say one thing. Something the leadership conversation has always been missing is a holistic approach. What I mean by that is we're so myopic on what we're focused on. What does it mean to lead versus manage? And what is strategy versus planning? And is there such a thing as strategic planning? What is servant leadership? Here's 4 mental models. Here's 5 frameworks. Here's how you drive efficiency. And here's how to be a great servant leader. Somewhere along the way, leadership forgot how to be human. Now, your skill sets and your training are not your primary contribution to an organization. The primary value you bring as a leader is your humanity. I think you'll agree, I think we can all agree by just looking around that leaders today have failed to bring their humanity to this moment in history. And for many of us, maybe most of us, leadership and leading and all the buzzwords around it have become hollowed out or carry a lot of baggage or are just painful. So to look at this with a fresh set of eyes, we're going to dive in. First quote, "The greatest disease facing humanity right now is our profound and painful sense of disconnection. We're disconnected from God, certainly, but also from ourselves, our bodies, from each other, and from our world." So let's pause on that for a second. A globally respected spiritual leader and best-selling author says that the biggest challenge facing humanity is not homelessness or global warming, but at the root of it all is disconnection. Disconnection from each other, but also from ourselves, which means disconnection from meaning and purpose. I mean, in a way, it makes sense for a religious leader to approach this topic from that angle. Religion comes from the Latin word religio, which means to religament or reconnect. And I think religion at its best is reconnecting us to ourselves and reconnecting us to the people around us and to God. But this is also echoed across every major discipline, as if the whole world is waking up to this all at the same time. In November 2023, the World Health Organization declared loneliness a global public health concern and launched an international commission to study the problem. But this data only confirms what we all feel in our bones, right? Trust is evaporating, anxiety is on the rise, and there is something broken that we are expected to ignore. So why is this a leadership quote? Because if you strip back the idea of leading, of leadership, to its core substance and essence, before ideas like strategy and vision and purpose and values leach onto it, leadership at its core is directional connection. So I imagine like a current, electric current. It's directional, relational energy. I think as a people, as a species, we have got to deconstruct our concepts of leadership that have gotten us to this place. With every interaction, we are leading someone, as they are us. We're always leading each other, every conversation, towards healing or harm or wholeness or fragmentation. And this can happen intentionally or outside of our awareness. But every human is a full-time leader, whether we know it or not, whether we own it or not. If you are a human in connection with other humans, leadership, leading is happening. So if disconnection is the greatest challenge we face, then leading well or directional, relational connection is the solution to what we're all experiencing at work. And that makes loneliness the enemy of leadership. So thanks for hanging out. That is our first quote, a leadership quote that does not mention leadership from a Franciscan friar. And I think it just may hold the first piece of the puzzle, part of the answer that will solve so many of our issues at work and in leading the future together as a species. The next one is from a trauma-informed physician, a world-renowned author, and you can check it out here.